Nā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Warm welcome, one and all, and just did take the time to acknowledge what seemed to be a extended period of non-contact and exacerbated again by the challenges of Tāwhiri Mātea, which has brought about this virtual link today. I want to first take the time to ensure and pay recognition and homage and acknowledgement to all of those who have passed either through the course of time, and particularly those families who are under extreme duress as they encounter what nature has served up throughout our respective districts and right across our nation. We were scheduled to meet at Te Aroha Pā, at Te Araparera, but of course that has been short-circuited by the options limited to us to get there. And at this stage, I think it's only right to extend a very warm and sincere welcome to Taiawhio Wati in her role to advocate, represent the Kaipara Uri collective under the entity of the Te Uriho Settlement Trust. So tēnā koe Taiawhio, nau mai haere mai, pai a mai ngā tapu ai. I taka e o peinga, e o mātua, e o tupuna, I ngā wako pahemu, nei rā te reo mai o tēnei rōpū, tēnei ohu, e tōratu nei ki a koe, kia hono mai, kia tomo mai, kia tatu mai, I runga I tēnei nohonga. Waiho mo te roanga o tā tātou hononga I tēnei wā, hei whakapānu ake ko wai. O mātou e noho atu nei, nā reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koe, e Taiawhio. And of course, Kieran, although we extended an acknowledgement back in our workshop gathering at the end of November, beginning of December last year, we extend a sincere and warm welcome to you as well. Tēnā koe. Nau mai haere mai me te wahanga mo te kauni hera o tāmaki, e kawea mai nā e koe, kia hono mai ki tēnei rōpū. A tōna wā ka tūtaki tahi a kanohi, e rangi mo tēnei wahanga, kia kūrua tahi ko Taiawhio, tēnā kūrua. Kia ora mai tātou katoa. Welcome and greetings one and all. I try and get this video working somehow. And for now, probably to just follow through our process of asking the digital coordinator to first of all introduce the procedure that we've adopted for live streaming and the recording of our meeting. Kia ora mai tātou.
Alyssa or Sophie, do you want to talk to that? I think we had a digital message that came up on everyone's screen to signal that we were live streaming, but is there anything else we need to add there? Alyssa or Sophie, do you want to talk to that? I think we had a digital message that came up on everyone's screen to signal that we were live. I think what's happening is we're getting the delayed. So I think we're all good to go on the live streaming. Thank you, Timmy. Yes, or Sophie, do you want to talk to that? I think we had a digital message that came up on everyone's screen to signal that we were live.
Well, I'm not sure whether
we're getting the delay, so I think we're all good to go on the live streaming. Thank you, Timmy.
I'm not sure whether we've gone from
think you want to talk about, I think we get a digital message came up on the screen.
I'm not sure whether we're going from the extreme of not being connected to the virtual platform and then getting double doses of it. I'm sort of contagious to overdoses of double doses. Like I may soon disappear completely. So can I just check and ensure that we all understand that this is being live streamed? And if there are some objections to that, I guess we need to register those objections. But we'll sort that as we come through. I'm going to take that as a consensus to proceed, and in doing so,
Hi, Tommy.
yeah, kia ora, kia ora. What's going on here? Can I? Oh my goodness. Now I'm having problems with this.
So Jack's just put up a note there. Should we all stop screening ourselves, Justine?
No, it's okay, I think, unless people have bad connectivity. What it is the delay on the webinar live streaming. So Steph will need to present from a different part or a different computer and a different system. Otherwise, we will get that delay the whole time. I was just in the process of texting her. But can I just do a quick check? Everyone's, with the exception of Jane and a few others with bad Wi-Fi, everyone can hear each other okay? The delays just generally from Sophie's room, who will never unmute again. That's good for the purposes of, so I'm happy to take Sophie's papers as needed, and Steph will move to a different area to present her paper. And I think we've got that sorted, Tammy. I can see the thumbs up from Tammy. Very good.
Kia ora. Kia ora through the chair. Can you hear me, Tuesday? Can you hear me? Yeah, just referring to my chat, if for the purposes of the public, if you could excuse those of us who have the obvious visuals. I will try every now and then, but if it phases out like how you saw before, I give my apologies in advance. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Tammy, you're on mute there.
Okay, I'm not having much luck trying to get this video up and running, but on to the next part of our meeting. It was around apologies. We have an apology from Cherie Povey. That could be recorded, and there are other apologies that need to be recorded. Do you have any, Justine? Anyone else? So can I suggest that Jack and Amy move and second the adoption of those policies? Tēnā koutou. Hawaii. All those in favour, please indicate with either your hand up and Hawaii. Thank you. Any objections? Any abstentions? That's carried. Can I pass it over to you, Justine? I'm just having a little trouble getting my documents sorted out here. I'll hand it to Justine for the moment.
Kia ora, Tammy, no problems. And look, it probably is a bandwidth issue just generally, so much has been affected by floods and cyclone. So now we're up to just a declaration of interest, just a reminder that we need to just check in with the joint committee members on any new or updated declarations of interest or potential conflicts of interest. Can you please declare your conflicts as they arrive as we move through the agenda? And just an extra a reminder, it relates to a paper we'll cover today. Can you please declare any new or expected future applications for KMR funding from either yourselves or related parties, close related parties? So that does include any entity for which the Joint Committee member acts in a governance capacity. So just to note that, but we have a paper on that later today. Kia ora. Now we're turning to item 4.1.
Just before we move off that, Justine, I think it's important, and I want to just reiterate the significance of managing our interests. I'm trying to avoid using the word conflict. And the kind of interest I'm talking about are groups that we have an association with who may either be primary or secondary applicants for KMR funding. I know in my own case, we've got marae and we have entities, and sort of some of them are commercial and some of them are community based. Some of them are social enterprises that are considering some kind of link and association with the KMR program. And I guess this was sort of borne out when the Navigator projects were circulated. So just a reminder to all of us to just think about those groups that you have any connection and association with, to list them and have that covered off in our processes. Kia ora tātou. Hand it back to you, Justine. Thank you.
Kia ora tame. So we're just going through some procedural issues, papers at the minute. The first is paper 5.1, item 5.1, which is the Joint Committee Action Tracker, which is an updated view for February of outstanding items. So the paper here is to table that appendix, which is our action tracker, and that records actions still to be resolved from previous Joint Committee meetings. So the recommendation for that paper is that the Joint Committee Action Tracker for February be received. Do we have someone to, it's a fairly self-evident paper, but do we have someone to, thank you, Virginia, for a motion, and is there a seconder there? Georgie, thank you very much. The good news about that paper is that there's hardly any outstanding items for now. So I think, John, big thumbs up from John, brilliant. Right, moving on to the next paper's item 5.2. It's another procedural paper that is the forward work plan, an indicative forward work plan for the Joint Committee itself. I'm just going to try and mute Tammy, a little bit of feedback there. Apologies, everyone. That's right, all gone. So forward work plan. So this is a indicative view of the main backbone of the Joint Committee papers that will be coming to you. Then things do move around, so it's a current view as at February. What this table shows us is the papers and decisions that we're expecting to have both by our formal hui and through workshop. It takes a calendar year. We think that's a helpful view rather than just looking at financial year we're in, since we're more than halfway through the financial year. And we do refresh that periodically. It's not intended to be a full view for those who are new to KMR's Joint Committee, but it's the main papers, the stable papers that we know. We will have, of course, a number of other remediation items that come up for decision that are more specific to particular issues that either you've called for or that the Motukura will put for decision. It's a view that is quite high level, but we'd be welcoming your acceptance of receipt. But before we move to motion, are there any comments or questions on the forward work plan for us, please? No? Virginia, kia ora.
So you want us to talk to this one now, Justine?
If you have any questions or comments.
Yeah. Thank you. In respect to the application, not being able to, go back and look at retrospective applications. Okay, I'm just wondering in terms of equity, because if you're looking at that 70%, right, movement on these to new ones, what will the comms be to those ones that are not going to, they're in that 50-50? What will the comms be to those ones that are not going to be eligible?
So just Virginia, I think Virginia is speaking to a proposal in Stephanie Versteg's paper. That's the next paper. So about how we deal with proposed changes to the Whenua Whānui Fund. Virginia, if it's okay, can we take this matter of retroactive application or not? If we could take that in Steph's paper, but I think it's an important issue. So I've made a note. We'll make sure we come back to that. No problems. Good to understand that's a point of conversation. Are there any other comments or questions on the indicative work plan? Otherwise, we'll seek a motion, someone to move it and someone to second it.
I'm happy to move it. That's Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone
Kia ora, through the chair, I'm happy to second it.
Oh, that's right. It's either Michelle or yourself, but I'll put you down, Jane. That's okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate that. And we'll keep you posted on those papers. So now we're moving to item 6.1, which is the first of what I think was quite a grunty papers, the grunty discussions for starting you off, I think, on some fairly significant decisions for the Joint Committee, all about reducing barriers to our landowners while maintaining if you like, the settings under which this whole program were designed and developed in line with the MOU. So I'd like to invite Stephanie Versteg, our Amorotaki Pakahi. Steph, I think you've got different connectivity now to talk us through this paper. Kia ora, Steph.
Kia ora. Can everyone hear me? I've just jumped into another room so you don't hear everything I say twice. So this paper gives an update on the items that we received your direction on in December, and it also identifies a couple more areas where we'll be seeking your decision. The items that we're giving an update on are the Navigator projects, the funding of native planting on hill slopes near waterways with high sediment yield risk, and the pre-ordering of 400,000 plants for this winter planting season. The expressions of interest for Navigator projects closed last Monday. We received 23 expressions of interest, and I have to say, after the last couple of months of intense weather events and everything that people have been going through, it was really cool to see the breadth of interest and across the catchment. Ben, would you be able to share the map that I've sent you? We've plotted out the projects across the catchment, and this was designed to be seen in person, so the text might be a bit small, but you can see the geographic spread of proposals. There are proposals that range from really specific projects that people are keen to do this winter at a property scale to longer term community-led approaches. So a sub-catchment based engagement and remediation planning, mana enhancing community-led remediation, some sector-based remediation, engagement and remediation planning, and property scale works that included lower cost native afforestation trials, some space planting of native species on erodible slopes, native regeneration, managed native regeneration. There were a couple of projects that are looking to have managed transition of steep erodible slopes post pine harvest into permanent native forest, some wetland restoration. There's a whole range of stuff that we've received. Of those 23 that we've received, we'd like to progress 20 of those as Navigator projects and the other 3 as standard sediment reduction projects. And we expect that that'll kind of evolve a little bit as we reach out and reconnect with people following those expressions of interest now to start developing things up. So in short, that's where we're at in the process. We think some things might move on to a slightly go slow track. People may have been affected as a result of recent storms, and plans may have changed, and we'll just, I guess, be responsive to that as it progresses. The funding of native planting on hill slopes, we've moved that to implementation. We've had a couple of projects being submitted in line with those criteria already, and the pre-ordering of the native plants is progressing as well through engagement with nurseries. And we're currently just checking back in with nurseries post recent weather events, just to check that stock supplies and all still there. We're confident that there is the plant supply across the catchment, but just checking in with individual nurseries to check that in line with that fair sort of allocation of demand, that they're still feeling comfortable with that. So, is there any queries around those? We'll move on to the decisions that we're seeking.
Jack has some questions.
I just have a question about improvement 1. I think it's a good idea to move towards 70%. We're to remove that barrier. But my question is quite a simple one. Is there any risk to the deed of funding?
So the deed of, good question. The deed of funding requires that the Crown contribution to the program over the life of the program is 50%. So that's provided we can maintain that, which I believe that we can, then it isn't a threat to the deed of funding. So the contribution to the program, so councils make an additional contribution, so that kind of that 50 to 70% of the Whenua Whānui project costs, that extra amount would come from a council contribution within this year's work plan, and I think that could be the same in the future years' work plans, if that makes sense.
Can we tease that out just a little bit more? Does that mean that it's likely to cost councils a little bit more in the first few years and a little less in succeeding years?
Yes, in one sense. So council, the amount that councils have put aside to date for the program, we've been under expending on that because the program has been not meeting anticipated levels of demand that were modelled in the indicative business case. So it would help boost council contributions to the levels that have been committed.
So basically it's a way of eating up the carry forwards.
It's about, and it will help achieve the levels of, it will, for these particular projects and these groups, we believe this will help tip things into being able to happen. So it will help increase demand for the program and help get works across the line, that otherwise the 50% contribution is just too much of a barrier, really.
No, I'm just concerned about what the implications would be for the budgets of both councils, that's all.
Yeah,
in the immediate current budget.
I think,
Can I,
so it will come within the, oh, you go, Justine.
So no, you go, Steve, that's fine. Sorry, apologies, bad hearing.
All good. Yeah, I mean, it would come within the existing allocations that councils already have towards the KMR program.
Yep.
No question.
And just one other thing to help us understand is that while we do pay 50-50 now for all mitigations, that's because we're only in riparian areas, it's very narrow fencing and planting and wetland restoration in that domain. As the soil conservation strategy settings come, which have a range of different sediment reduction mitigations that we KMR can choose to invest in, we may elect to fund far less than 50% of those mitigations in due course. And that may be because there are other revenue streams that do associate, or they're attractive enough for the landowner for other reasons to undertake. So I'm pretty confident we can both maintain the fiscal envelopes for both councils as planned under the MOU and maintain the overall program 50-50 expectations that are set by our primary funder, MFE. And it's really about the mix of sediment mitigations that we elect to choose to invest in, and then how much of each of those suite of mitigations we elect to fund, proportion of the overall costs. but that's something we're seeking discussion today. And when you get the soil conservation decisions on the 1st of May, this will line up a little bit more clearly. But in terms of fiscal envelope for council, no change. Now, I think we had Tame first, and then Michelle, and then Jane.
I'll pass it over to Michelle, and Jane, I'll tag on the end of that.
Okay, thank you, Tame. I just wanted to check, it's not in regards to the funding of that. I get how we need to incentivise this and try and promote it. I'm just concerned about the timing of this right now with the level of damage that would be out there with existing and maybe past projects. So my concern is that the available plants that we have in the coming planting season, I kind of feel like there needs to be a priority given to maybe existing plantings, people that have already committed to this, who have suffered a lot of loss and damage. So is there a guarantee for those types of projects for that remediation work as well?
Steve, can I answer that? We have a recovery package proposal in the Potataki report, which talks about those investments. I think it's fair to say, Steve, jump in here, we've got plenty of trees for everyone, and we actually need to accelerate both, focus on both aspects, both existing planned planting and those who may have already planted and been affected, and this would be a proposed restoration. Yeah.
Okay, yep, that's cool. That's really good to hear. The other question then on top of that is that to minimise like risk, is there, do we need to be a little concerned with how we accelerate it, that we might be putting ourselves up for further losses if we expand too quickly, with planting or whatever? It's just, I'm just putting this out there that there is a potential risk of losing what we also newly invest with future weather events as well. So is a long-term view better than a quick view? Just as a point.
Yeah, I think the amount of scaling up that we're talking about is still relatively modest, and you're right, there's a total tension, and that these events highlight the need for more trees in our landscape, but also highlight the challenges in getting them established. And so but I think the level at which we're proposing to scale things up is appropriate, and it's about ensuring that there are good plans in place to monitor and support those works to be done in a way that's resilient, and likely there will be further losses. I think there's no native planting project where there's 100% establishment rates, so it's about trying to maximize the successful establishment.
Yeah, I mean, I know the importance of trying to stabilize things. And I mean, another thing that I have heard as well, and so I want to kind of raise it too, is there been with the flooding areas on the the low-lying areas of the catchment that are flooding, has there been any change to, or any thought to change of how we plant distance-wise from waterways to not contribute to flooding? That I've heard that there is that risk out there of this, and so I just want to know if the team have looked at, are we? And I know that it might not be in our MOU, that the MOU is to stop sediment, but is there anything in there to talk about not contributing to flooding in areas as well?
So with respect to the location of planting and making that more flood resilient? Yeah, so I think that's a conversation that happens on the ground with landowners already in planning plantings. Landowners will often know where floodwaters more commonly reach, and are not wanting to invest in something that's going to be washed away. So it is something that's taken into account already. I guess some of the more extreme events that we've been having, as you kind of go beyond that, what is a known flood risk area, then it's where it's a bit more challenging.
So there is scope for landowners to have that conversation as well with Yeah, to sort of change things so it doesn't actually increase the flooding in that area kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
and just to add to that, in the recovery package, we are proposing to actually move and be open to moving planned works where they will clearly be affected if they haven't yet been finalised or started, and or if they've been washed away in areas we're not necessarily going to be replanting. So we can deal with some of those, that more nuanced discussion, Michelle, when we come to the recovery package. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think now Jane, then Tame, and then John.
Kia ora koutou, kia ora, through the chair, Watu Tame. Just so the elephant for me, the elephant in the room has been the just the reality check that we have to, that you've been talking about in relation to the recent weather events and their frequency and their impacts. And I'm talking mainly to the areas that are not known for flooding. So we've had flooding, north and south, that have never flooded. And so it's like a bit of a wake-up call for landowners, for whānau. But while this conversation is around the planting, I tend to think that the soil conservation is probably a little bit more important, because you could have, as Michelle alluded to and Jack alluded to, that you'll be busy planting in an area that things will disappear. So I think we just have to maybe change that conversation a bit and turn it around. That the soil conservation and the riverbank stability and all tamia is should be the priority, and the plants. Well, the plants are there, but the risk is, as Michelle said, are you going to deliberately plant plants in an area that you can clearly see has been damaged in terms of soil, and just have the mobility rate skyrocket through the roof. I mean, it's just something that I want to put on the, and I'm sure Matakura has factored this in, but I just wonder, would be good to understand how much they factored it in. Kia ora.
I guess one point of, detail to respond to that is around the planting zones that we have when we do riparian planting. The area that's most adjacent to the waterways has particular low-lying plants that are well adapted to having wet feet. That's not to say they wouldn't be washed away in some events, but they're plants that they move. They're more tolerant of water and move with the water, and then it's so. And so that's something that's taken into account in the way plantings are designed and the species that are chosen to go and in different areas as their particular water tolerant.
Kia ora. I hear what you're saying, Steph, and naturally in an ideal world when summer is summer, when the seasons stay put, that is so. And we just have to sort of like be flexible in our understanding of the lay of the land, because it's no longer land, it's silt. Literally. So we're, this whole kaupapa is around the silt in Kaipara Moana, but we've got silt on land. Kia ora. So it's just something to have a think about.
Kia ora. Thank you, Jane. And it's particularly relevant for soil conservation settings. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to pass to Tame now, but he may wish to take back the chairing role. I'm not sure if his internet is sorted out enough for that. Tame, are you able, do you want to take the question, or are we going to wait for John? Okay, maybe we move to John.
Sorry, my fault there. Stephanie, I wondered if it would be useful in terms of the map you showed us the relativity of those navigator projects to existing projects, whatever those projects are in a KMR context. And I want to contextualize that. I think it's important that we understand the relativity of planting plans to flood management. We don't have the luxury of sitting down and writing a whole new regime on how the world should manage climate change. We've got a 6-year window with this Crown. We're down to 3 years. 2026 is the end of our MOU. So we do not have the luxury of relitigating something that should have happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago about managing floodwaters. I think that the opportunity is a strong one, where we've got to get a stronger alignment so as we build a confidence in the landowners that all of this is designed to encourage input from third parties. And we're not, look, KMR is never going to be able to resolve what we've just witnessed in the last 3 months. But I mean, if you take the example, Justine, and those of us that went up to Kiwitahi at the Hildrich property and take note of that. Now, so I think one option for our purposes as a joint committee is understanding where these navigator project proposals are relative to the existing KMR projects. And that way we can make more informed decisions, Michelle, about, you know, how do we quickly convert some of our opportunities. And of course, Ilka, you know, we all went off to have a look at the Hildrich property. What an important sort of step that was. And we had Minister Parker along. So I think there are people that would sort of align more with what we are trying to do, aligned to what is already on the ground and happening, and then relative to that, what sort of arrangements should we be preparing for years 7 through to 10 of our original proposal to the Crown. And I think that's the kind of recovery that we have to start pitching towards, as opposed to dropping down to which of the expressions of interest have merit over the other, or you know what I mean. So that's as a way of putting that forward. And put simply, there's a lot of talk currently about stormwater management. Well, you know, for the bulk of what KMR is up to, it's not stormwater, it's flood management. Simple. And it has to be sort of in terms of what we have come to understand and where our investment and direction has already been set with landowners. I've got a little bit more to add around the landowner alignment with KMR, but I think that can come a bit further in. So that was just an observation, Stephanie. I think it'll be really useful to see exactly that map you showed relative to existing projects, and then we can have some informed decisions about the recovery remedial sort of component of those existing projects, alongside of what plants are available and what we want to move out for the 2023 planting season. Kia ora tata.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, Tane.
All right, yes.
Do you want
Pass it
to
over.
take?
Yeah,
You want to
okay.
pass? Yeah, okay, back to you.
Okay, I'll pass it over to John Blackwell.
Yes, good morning all. Just going back a point, you're talking about flooding and the risk we've had to our plantings, and that's fair enough. But what we've learned in the last week or so is that when the wind went round to the southwest, it took a lot of our trees out that weren't particularly in the flood area, but we need to learn which are the right trees to plant. And the poplars particularly have caused a lot of problems with road closures and fences and that going down. So we need to learn from what's happened in the last 50 years. And I'll talk about the Kaihu River because they had poplars planted up there, and they've got to the point now where they need government assistance to probably clean that mess up. I suppose the other remark I'd make too is that what we plant probably has to be maintained longer than 6 years, and I don't know how you address that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Points noted, I'm sure. Amy? Tēnā koe, Amy.
Kia ora tāne, thank you. Kia ora, Steph. Thank you for the paper, and it's been good to hear the questions and the discussion, because there's plenty in here. Just from my perspective, I'm very supportive of the recommendations that you guys have set out. For me, this is a real moment in time, and it's a real testament to the work that the Maurikuta staff have been doing on the ground to get us to the point where we can look to sort of boost the program in this way. I think for me, it's a timely response to the challenges the people on the ground, you know, all of us actually are facing right now, with that combination of economic challenge, you know, social challenge, people, the social stress and pressure people are feeling, you know, as they respond to what's going on, and also obviously the ecological challenge, which has really ramped up for us here in the north. So yeah, I'm really grateful to see this paper. I think the timing is excellent, and yeah, very supportive of the opportunity we have to be responsive to the needs of the land and the people, and also to be at this place where we can really push that momentum forward. So when the discussion is finished, I'll be very happy to move all 8 of those recommendations together, but happy for discussion to flow as needed. Kia ora.
Kia ora, tātou.
Kia ora.
Are there any further points that people need or wish to raise? Are you able to, you want to speak to your chat question, Virginia?
Yeah. Yep, kia ora, Steph, and just and that's why I brought that up before, just around the equity aspect of the funding moving forward to the 70%, and how we communicate that back to our retrospective projects, because they trusted us, right? We're talking about getting the buy-in from our landowners. They've gone down this path. Now we're going to have another stream going forward, another approach. So I'm just asking, what kind of comms do we give to those projects and how we deal with them in terms of fairness? And yeah, good question, Virginia.
So there are 3 projects that there are a couple of completed Whenua Whānui Fund projects all paid out, and so that wouldn't apply, the sort of closed projects, I guess, completed. There are 3 that are contracted under the current 50-50 contribution. A couple of those may be, or one of those. Oh, Lizette, do you want to? Are you better placed to speak to these, Lizette? You know these in more details, but there are 3 that will be impacted, and I'll let Lizette speak to it in more.
I'm actually talking about all the projects, Steph.
Yeah.
We're talking about small landowners, small projects. You know, we're trying to get the trust aspect. I talk to landowners. Yeah. That's my concern.
Yeah. So for the Whenua Whānui Fund, 70-30 change, Yep. I can see Justine and Lizette have got their hands up too.
Lizette first.
I was just going to talk about the Whenua Whānui Fund projects that sorry, Stephanie just mentioned. There were 3 that are contracted. 2 of them are nearly complete, and I suspect both of those may have flood damage. I'm not sure, just because of the area that they were in. There's one more that was contracted earlier this year, and I think we will get together shortly to talk about how we communicate to them. They did have some third-party funding as well, without going into too much detail. But what was the last part that you said, Virginia?
The comms going out to, you know, retrospective project that we've funded, and how they don't qualify, you know, they can't go back. Or you've got this on page 19 about retrospective.
Yes, no, sorry, I thought you meant all projects, including landowner grants. That I just want a clarification of that. So sorry.
You go.
Sorry, it's a bit delayed. As I mentioned, there are 3 whenua whānui fund contracts that have been contracted. 2 of them are complete or nearly complete, but are likely to be within the recovery period. We're just waiting for those landowners to take stock and let us know what's wrong, if anything. I'm just assuming because of where they're based. And the other whenua whānui fund contract was signed earlier this year, and they have third-party funding. So we will be talking amongst the Maurikura about the comms going out.
And so all the other whenua whānui fund projects that are in development, this would apply to.
Yeah.
So it would be those 3 only that are contracted.
Yeah. So anything that's being developed right now, there's a site visit taking place, there's a sediment reduction plan being developed. Maybe we're creating the contract now. They're within this paper that's before you.
All right, how does that sound, Virginia? Is that clear?
Yeah, I'll see how it comes out.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
then.
Bye.
Just go back to, thank you, Lizette. Stephanie, just pass it over to Michelle, please.
Thank you, Tamo. I just want to kind of support what Virginia is saying, in that, you know, even if a landowner who you know entered into this, you know, and that's a really amazing thing for them to do. That is significant financial input and things as well. And so many of them are feeling great effects from, you know, the cyclone devastation, etc. And even if they haven't suffered loss of planting, they have suffered loss elsewhere, and their buffers of, I guess, emergency funding may have been, you know, they might have chosen to use that for the planting, just as an example. So I'm just wondering, you know, Virginia talked about the equity side of things and the 70% sort of offer. It kind of brings to mind, you know, when you're hooked up with a power company or whatever, and, you know, you might be, or a telecom plan, or, you know, comms plan and stuff, where new offers come along to new people that are much more financially beneficial than the contract that you're tied into. And so I just, you know, we all feel those on different occasions. And so I'm wondering if there's any way we can, on a needs basis, offer support to people that have put this investment in retrospectively.
Can I make a comment, Michelle? And it's part of the challenge for today's meeting was to get an agreement from a joint committee perspective on the kind of recovery that's required for existing programs, contracts. And I think there's a fine line between the issue that's being discussed now and the kind of recovery attached to projects that were initiated from whatever sources of funding KMR had. And I think that is something we need to keep a very close eye on today, that our opportunity to strengthen that with which we started continues through the various stages, and that they're not left high and dry. I take your point about power companies. They're pretty quick to send you a reminder notice on, you know, you've gone over the date for your to be eligible for your customer discount, but no mention about the 5 or 6 or 7 days that you were without power. Same with Telecom and Chorus, or whatever they brand themselves with today. You know, no doubt Wednesday there'll be a notice going around, you should have paid your account by the 28th of February. They don't tell you about the 7 days you were without their services and how that is commensurate with the late fee that they're going to impose on you. But we don't want to get into that sort of practice. But I think the point here is that the existing projects, whether they were contracted or due for completion, need some kind of evaluation to determine the level at which they were affected with the last weather patterns, and what that would look like in a sort of manner of going back to sort of reset their planting programs and so on. I think there's a portion in there. What I did hear in the discussion is a deliberation around how we could shift the 50-50 funding to another scale or to another level or to another ratio setting, as long as we remained within the overall settings agreed with our deed of funding. I think within that is trying to manage the scope of what we have in front of us. So are there other comments that people need to make on this agenda item? 6.1. First, second, if there are no comments, are people clear on the recommendations under agenda item from page 14, numbered 1 through to, numbers 1 through to 8? People have that in front of them? Or do we need to display it? Oh, we all got it?
We'll got it.
Does anybody not have it? Okay. We will take it that people have that list of recommendations, numbers 1 through to 8 on page 14 from your agenda papers. And Amy McDonald did offer to move it at the outset. Do we have a seconder?
Happy to if you want to. Tammy, it's Greg.
Kia ora, Greg. So we've moved by Amy McDonald, seconded by Greg Sayers. All those in favour, please indicate.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All good. Thank you very much, one and all. And we're just 2 minutes ahead of schedule from our scheduled morning tea time. And that was a fluke. Wasn't good management, Justine, on my behalf. Pure fluke. So take a break, one and all, and we'll see you back here in half an hour.
11 o'clock. Yep.
11 o'clock. So good luck. Thank you. I'll try and get my video running. Okay. Bye-bye. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Just before we move into our agenda proper, can we go back to a matter that was overlooked to confirm the minutes of our meeting end of November, beginning of December, please? And if members can note that, we are looking for someone to move the confirmation of those minutes. I'll take it from Jack Craw, moved, and Virginia Warrener, seconded. And any further discussions? If not, I'll put it for adoption. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Or indicate.
Aye.
Thank you. Any objections? Thank you. Now, moving ahead to our next agenda item, which is, where are we?
Otataki report.
Okay, Otataki report. Thank you, Justine. I'll hand it over.
Kia ora everyone. Very good to have had our discussion to date. I just was reflecting over the break on two matters before I jump into the Potataki report. They're relevant, so I might start with those. The first is that just as we talked at our induction in December, for those present, KMR currently operates just two grants, the Whenua Whānui Fund grant and the landowner grant. And as you'll have seen in my report, you know, we're now working with 443 landowners in the catchment, which is a really big scale up from the, you know, after the first full year of operation. So we've got a lot more to do, of course, but just to give a sense of scale of some of the discussions around Whenua Whānui Fund, the changes that were proposed by Stephanie Versteeg in her paper, only 19 of those grantees are under the Whenua Whānui Fund. And just to remind us, landowner grants tend to be for where there's a one-to-one correlation between KMR and the landowner. It's usually the private sector, often farmers and other landowners who are looking in that, working in that productive space. Whenua Whānui Fund projects are one-to-many correlations. So it's where KMR's granting to community groups, iwi hapu, marae groups, and other groups, catchment care groups or planting groups. And so we know that, and it's one of the reasons why that proposal did come to yourselves today, equity and inclusiveness and the ability to participate under KMR, we were finding that there were some big challenges there. So just to put some of the changes in context that yourselves have discussed today, I thought it was worth starting with that. My paper also addresses some of the big decisions that this group will need to make in 2023. Another second point, our landowners in KMR, you know, I think Michelle too, Carmichael, you know, your councillor, you spoke of doing the right thing. Our landowners are taking action. It's often very expensive. It's time consuming. Our landowners under KMR, our observation and reflection is that they take action over multiple years, not just once under one contract. And in fact, our whole regime, our whole program is set up for multiple years worth of work that is part funded and supported by KMR and often other entities too. So when we come to think about, it was a very valuable discussion around retrospectivity and how we think about inclusion and participation. What I do know is that as things change, all the landowners will be able to, even ones that work with us now, the 443, one way or another will be able to take up those changes as yourselves as joint committee make decisions. So I thought that was worth just putting on the table, because I think this is a long-term relational program. It is meant to be intergenerational. And I think our chair, Tarangi, also mentioned that thinking about the beyond current contractual conditions and how we design KMR. And in fact, my paper today, the report is different than normal for those who've been around a while. What it does is set out my thoughts, they're personal, they can be challenged, for 2023 and what this group will be asked to think about and make decisions on. And just for bringing us all onto the same page, we had a very fulsome induction and a set of project visits, site visits in end of November, beginning of December. It was a great opportunity to bring this group, our governors, up to speed, our primary funders as well, NFE was present, up to speed on where the program was at. So I'm not going to dwell on those issues again, but there is quite a lot of context for the decisions that this group will be asked to make this year. And particularly as KMR scales up, as we become more inclusive, work with a wider set of landowners, look to support a varying set of landowners, quite a diverse set, to make actions on their land or on the land of others that reduce sediment into the moana, our ultimate objective. There will be some, I guess, fit for purpose recommendations from the Maurikura, from the team, that reflect our lived experience about what works and what doesn't. And I guess we have always said that KMR is agile. We know that things change out in the world. In 2018, when the indicative business case was developed, it was pre-COVID. We didn't have our supply chain constraints. We didn't have our labour force, our market challenges. We didn't have an economic recession, nor did we have floods and cyclone impacts. And so our world changes quite regularly, even in the year and a bit that the team has been working together. And I think, generally speaking, I'm expecting a lot more of that this year too. And so I guess just to be clear, we, Maurikura, will bring decisions when they're due to this table, and we know this program will keep evolving. That agility can be, really challenging for people who want to know exactly what KMR is at any one point in time. But I would rather we did the right thing by our landowners, our funders, our council participants. It's real money, it's real time, it's a trusted relationship on both sides of the fence, so to speak, on land. And that's where I come from. And I think it's really important that I frame up, make sure people understand that as we head into this paper. So first of all, thank you. Just really wanting to flag that the 443 landowners that we're working with, I know that many of them will drop out of our pipeline. Right now, we have about a quarter of our landowners, 25%. It's actually scaled up a little bit lately, probably because of recession. Try and work with us, and for whatever reason, sometimes it's they sell their land, they move on, someone passes away. There are lots of reasons why people can't go through the process with us and through onto a regular journey. And despite our efforts, and that's our efforts of our delivery partners too, Forest Bridge Trust, Fonterra, our Kaipara Uri partners, Environs Holdings, and others who are working with us. And I just wanted to flag that, because we do spend almost an increasing amount of time working in the community and with our landowners. And that's because I would say that what I call our low-hanging fruit, the landowners who are waiting for KMR to be ready, they are often now working with us. And the ones that we're trying to engage with now, in part, not totally, but in part, there are our landowners who may not be aware of the opportunity, who have perhaps less resource or time, means to engage with us, and or who've had a lot of headwinds. And so we just, we do what we can to engage and inspire and support their efforts in line with their aspirations for the whenua. We spoke at length at the induction, but that does mean that the sediment remediation activity from KMR is lower than modelled in 2018. There's a number of reasons for that. An indicative business case is just that. It supports the investment from the Crown, and it was fantastic. It worked in that respect. But there are things that we know didn't bear out in the real world from that indicative business case. We spoke at length in late last year, so I won't repeat them. But we do know things like the costs of sediment remediation activities on the ground 5 years later are quite different than what was modelled. We also know that the mix of remediation activities that people, communities, society, if you like, are able to support and invest, who want to invest in, they may have changed in those 5 years too. And just wanted to toko John Blackpool's comments around, poplars have their place, and we know also that they take out fences. They can be very wind affected. And those are, I'm not making a Kaimara comment here, it's just a personal one, knowing lots of rows of poplars in the Kaipara district. They're beautiful, and they have some things to watch for. As with most of the mediation activities we invest in, there are pros and cons. The number one thing that Kaimara will be needing to do in 2023 is to broaden our suite of sediment mitigation activities. I talk about getting out of second gear, moving beyond riparian fencing and planting, moving into beyond wetlands restoration. Of course, we will always invest in those activities. They are important. And for those governors who have been around a while, the South Kaipara Streams project has highlighted just how important fencing and planting on the awa in the streams and down into the coastal margins is to reduce sediment, particularly in the Auckland region. Next month, we will bring to this group an additional set of sediment mediation actions for your support and endorsement. We need a broader set of measures in our kite. We won't go into the detail of that today, but I have painted a picture in my paper around what are the potential options or mitigation options that you'll be asked to consider. We have got a reference group in place. We have technical expertise and advice, and we have learnings from other programs across New Zealand around how to broaden that into the hill country. What other sediment mitigation activities could be funded? But we also do know that this conversation is going to be challenging. It does deal with things like the role of exotic trees in the Kaimara kite for funding, potentially, or not. It's a choice that this group needs to make. And obviously, we're not talking all or nothing. It may be some of those species that we put up into the mix for support. There are other harder infrastructures. I know many of the governors today on the call have talked about roading infrastructures and some of the sediment traps and other measures that could also be put into the mix for soil conservation as a method to help and support halving sediment flows into the Moana. Those will be things that will be potentially put to yourselves next month for workshop and brought for decision on the 1st of May. Now, from my perspective as Potataki, it is the most important decision that this group can make, is to step back in a structured way with our support to make decisions on that, what is in the broader kite of sediment remediation activities and how much of those mitigations do we KMR fund. We had an earlier discussion today about what proportion of cost could we potentially invest in, and it is discretionary. While the overall program mix of 50-50 needs to be maintained, as Stephanie painted this morning, we do have choices around various mitigations within the kite itself, as long as the overall program budget and balance is maintained. I've spent a bit of time on that because there were very good discussions this morning and great questions. I'm going to move this on now, but that for me, if we can crack that this year, it will make such a material difference for a whole bunch of outcomes that have been talked about today. One, getting more landowners taking action under the program and reducing sediment into the Moana. Two, ideally doing that in a way that reduces flood risk and makes us more resilient to current and future climate changes. And three, that will support, I guess, other wider outcomes, workforce, jobs in the catchment, biodiversity and other aspects and benefits from planting at scale. So those things are important. It is going to be something that we're going to be wanting you to really engage with the detail of the advice put up to you on. I'm going to pause there before I move on to another aspect of the paper, but are there any comments or thoughts there before I push on to the recovery? Annie?
Good, Justine. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to those conversations that we're going to have, and I appreciate what you've set out in the paper today. I guess I just wanted to flag from my personal perspective around those the sediment mitigation tools and that concept that we're going to be looking to broaden our activity. While knowing that the MOU and the funding is absolutely about sediment to the harbour, I just want to be really clear that I'm interested in having a conversation that is very holistic when we look at our options. And you know, I'm acutely aware that we're sort of at a point in time where climate change mitigation as well as adaptation just need to be absolutely fundamental to all our work going forward. And so, you know, when we look to Tairāwhiti and we see what they are experiencing, you know, as a result of their hill country ending up in their rivers and at their coasts, yeah, what can we learn from that? And what's the opportunity while keeping sediment at the forefront, what's the opportunity to bring those other aspects right up alongside? So just, yeah, flagging that for me, that's going to be, you know, a really crucial part of the conversation. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Amy. Noted. Yeah. I think that was Jack next.
Yeah, thank you. I think Amy sort of covered half of what I was going to say. Look, I suppose it's just leading on from what, I mean, Jane alluded to it right at the beginning. We're probably going to have to take more of an integrated approach. I mean, that's basically what you're talking about, Justine, gathering up all the other factors. And I guess, as you've alluded, Justine, we don't really have time now at 3 years into a 6-year program to completely relitigate the whole, you know, the catchment-based approach and then to weave in climate change. Otherwise, it would take another 1.5 years before we could get started again. But I'm just wondering if there's some way we can make some educated guesses about, you know, where we actually put our investment. I think some of those things will be reasonably self-evident. And I think we just have to not be too precious about that and just say, well, look, you know, we're going to take some educated guesses and we're going to, you know, incorporate this. And one of those educated guesses is going to be around exotic trees. I mean, John's got a really good point about poplars. They seem to be a really good idea until it starts to blow, and then they're not a very good idea. So maybe so I guess that what that leads me to is, if we're going to be including exotic trees, we're going to need a separate set of criteria, aren't we? To about, you know, where we would put them and why we would put them, and would they have to be completely retirement plantings, or can we still integrate grazing with exotic trees? And there's just such a huge range of approaches that, well, there's quite a wide range of approaches that we can take. So that will take a little bit of teasing out, but I'm sure the NRC farm management staff and will be able to assist us with some of that. Anyway, that's all I've got to say right now. Thanks.
Kia ora, Jack. And we also take advice from our Auckland Council teams too. So, yeah, absolutely. It's a wide kaupapa in KMR, our expertise. Yeah, but thank you for those thoughts. And look, it is a hard one. This is about values at the end of the day, isn't it? Often about values, what people think is important in the landscape. Tami.
Yeah, kia ora, tātou. I guess mine is a fundamental aspect of KMR as we've come to know it. From the outset, we went down this path of stepping out of the integrated approach, and I want to sort of explain myself a little here. I think we fundamentally trip over ourselves when we talk integration, but what we're actually meaning is that we've got to stay in our respective lanes. KMR as a program is quite specified and direct. We cannot afford to get tangled up with a whole lot of sideline issues that come with this holistic, integrated kind of thinking. So when, you know, it's as subtle as being discerning when we are referring to landowners. We've got to stop this category of Māori land, dairy land, sheep and beef land, government land, local government land. So landowners have to be treated on the same level. So a multinational, internationally owned investment at the headwaters of the Mangakahia is no different to the landowner who happens to be 7, 9, 11 generations in descendancy on the floor of the Mangakahia Valley. But for some unknown reason, there has been a history of giving a different pathway for the multinational, international landowner who is somewhere obscure in the picture of the impact of their investments at the headwaters compared to what happens down on the valley floor. So in articulating what it is KMR is able to provide, I think it's important and imperative that we remain in the lane that we are in complete command of. Command in terms of an MOU that we've struck with the Crown, and command in terms of the MOU that includes local government. Because on that level, those of us that have been engaged with the Crown on the treaty settlement component heard an outlandish statement that landowners do not matter in the context of one division of this Crown, you know, this integrated Crown that once iwi relationships strengthened. Well, that came out on the 27th of January. Just about floored some of us to hear that landowners don't matter. We need to be talking to the landowners that matter. Well, if that attitude pervades through the agencies, we're in trouble. We cannot afford to be debating or relitigating co-governance or what that means, simply because this has been predicated on a strategic alignment, a partnership between landowners that are interested in doing something for their futures, local government and central government. And I guess to me it's pretty important to have this clearly articulated through the communications that run with these plans. And one sure way is to give this some serious thought around what is our assistance as KMR to those projects that came to the party or came to the point of agreement, and have engaged in a regime of contracted objectives, but have been impacted by weather. So the recovery is in that context. It's not. I wouldn't like us to go headlong and head first into matching the integrated Crown's response to storm recovery. I think ours is connected more to those projects that were initiated with good faith, under agreement, and have met with the impact of the weather events. How do we assist them? What level of recovery can we clearly articulate towards those projects? And if there are any options to modify our arrangements with projects post these weather events. Because for me, I haven't seen the level of slash in our catchment. I know there's some concern at the headwaters, but somewhere in here is a conversation that needs to be held between those efforts that were initiated, as both John and Jack have alluded to, through the NRC and their land stabilisation efforts, the late Murray Hunter and what he initiated right here. I can look at some of the tops of those poplars that are still there, but I also see some gaps in the skyline where the poplars used to be, that are now lying prone in the Mangakahia River. a little bit off the riparian margin, I might add, they're right in the middle of the river. What happens to those? How do we sort of say to people across the river, oh, those are on your side, not my side? Anyway, I think the points are being made, but just wanted to add that level of support to the kind of picture that's been painted in our Poutātaki report, and encourage a breadth of thinking that keeps us in this mode of an alignment with what we can contribute to other parties that are also that also need to be engaged. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Tame. And thank you too for those thoughts. I guess from my perspective, just to sum up, I mean, I do believe that KMR can honour our MOU. We do every day, and focus on our kaupapa, which is sediment reduction. But I think we can do it in a way where we do deliver those wider benefits. I don't think it necessarily slows us down. And I'm very much in line with Jack. We've got to be pretty agile in KMR. We're a very, very small team, as you know, and we've got a lot of work to do and scaling up at pace. I think that from my perspective, that this we could wait to get perfect information and data. Actually, I agree, we don't have time. Our moana doesn't have time. So the climate resilience and the climate events have shown us some of the impacts in the last wee while. So we will push on with your support into extending the kete, and there'll be some very important discussions on workshop. Just for the record, we will hold, we're proposing to hold workshop online for this next session to go through some of the options. And then on 1 May, we're back at the marae where we couldn't get to because of road closures and things today. So we're just deferring that, and that will be a really good chance to make decisions in person.
Kia ora.
So on,
Kia ora.
kia ora.
Thank you, Justine. Just wanting to check if there are any further comments before we put the recommendations to in the form of motions. Kia ora, Amy.
Kia ora, Tane, and thank you for your kōrero prior. Just on the recovery package, Justine, the thing that came to mind for me was that this is sort of an unexpected new area of work where we're having to double back with our those that we are already working with, and then support them to kind of figure out what the path forward looks like for their land. Yes. I just wondered if you had thought about the staff capacity you have to cover this work. And the bright idea I had, and since Ilka is here, I'm just going to mention it, is whether or not there might be an opportunity to second somebody from the likes of MFE, you know, acknowledging the government's commitment to our post-climate recovery and response. Is there an opportunity for us to pull in somebody who could lead this work for your team and free up your staff to continue with the mihi that we already had planned? Just a question. Kia ora.
Right, Amy, can I address that? Because I think that we haven't really spoken at length about the recovery, but I am proposing to outsource a lot of that because it is workforce driven in line with our Jobs for Nature funding. The team has got a lot to do. That said, this is important. If we don't support our landowners who are our early adopters, our front runners, in the often year one worth of work for KMR, they'll not take those next year's worth of works into the future. I have in mind to access some third-party funding. There's a lot on offer, including from MPI around fence recovery and repair on pastoral land. And what I was proposing there would be to seek some co-funding from them that would then be channeled out via our current accredited contractors. These are our fencing, planting, site preparation, and other teams that we've done all the mahi around understanding their business and their health and safety track records, where they do work for our KMR landowners right now. We have an underexpended budget line in the workforce development space that can be used for that. So it would be quite a light touch from a maurikura perspective, Amy, around making this work. We talk to and engage with our field advisors and landowners now around projects. So it would be as and when we understand a landowner has been affected and is ready to engage with us on help. And those two things might be, you know, further down the line, not instant. Just to give one evidence, both of the project sites that this governor group visited in December being quite significantly affected. We know that neither of the landowners are ready to talk to us now about what they want to do with the KMR contract at the minute. We are proposing to pivot whatever contractual arrangements in a very light touch way to support both the whenua and the landowner around an alternative project site if needed. That said, I'm very open to secondees into KMR. Space a bit of an issue, but we will find some room with NRC support through the wall. I'd be very open if there is someone who would like to run this unit for this program, this initiative for us while we carry on with navigator projects, which in themselves are quite high intensity for the Motukura, and as well as engaging with our landowner pipeline. So any and all offers very much supported there. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Amy, Justine. Michelle?
Oh, kia ora. I just wanted to say I absolutely fully support the, helping those that are existing. And I think it actually, without sounding like I want to take a fortuitous approach to, the events that have happened, but I think it's actually an opportunity to share with landowners that may be reluctant or less reluctantly sort of taking on a planting project. It could actually offer them some idea that, look, having someone like KMR as a backup for times where there's losses to, help with that kind of thing, it might actually encourage further uptake of new projects too.
Good, thank you. Kia ora, Jack.
I just want to, sorry, thank you. One thing I neglected to mention before, I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity, I know it's not core business, but is there any opportunity for us to integrate our projects with those that assist infrastructure protection? I'm just looking at the state of the railway up through the Kaipara, and there's something like 20 odd slips apparently across the railway line, including a massive one just north of Helensville that's been there since the 27th. So, we're talking about not only, KMR's about protecting the harbour, but, we've got to, people have got to live and increasingly, obviously, road and rail is becoming much more fragile, and we're probably going to have to lean on rail a bit to support roading. So I'm just wondering if there's another, if we get to a prioritizations scenario that a project that also protects the infrastructure can be, brought up the priority list a little. Bit of a plea more than anything else, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Kia ora, Jack. Would you mind passing me the details of whoever you have that I could be in touch with? Would be very helpful just to take that further and explore it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no further comments on where we've got to so far, I'd like to go back to the agenda items listed there on page 23 and work through the stages of the recommendations. First one, that report Poutātaki update from Justine, dated 13th of February 2023, be received. If you have a mover for that, please.
I'm happy to move.
Moved by Georgina and seconder. Do we have a seconder? Greg Sayers. Thank you, Greg, Georgina. And all those in favour, please give an indication.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? That's carried. The second one relates to provide direction to the Kaipara Moana on the proposed KMR recovery package. And do we have a mover for that, please?
Kia ora. Kia ora through the chair.
James Gerard moved, and the seconder, Michelle Carmichael.
Yeah.
Michelle, seconder. All those in favour, please indicate. Good. Thank you. Any objections? Any abstentions? That's carried. And just before we pass over to to the next part of the agenda, staying on page 23. This is really an acknowledgement of the severe damage brought about by, the weather events, resulting in flooding, landslides, and wind damage across the catchment, and in line with the KMR MOU and Jobs for Nature deed of funding. We have got a motion, and that is that we allocate funds as required from the KMR workforce budget to mobilise accredited KMR fencing and planting contractors to repair and restore KMR funded project works, including those delivered by KMR delivery partners where landowners are seeking assistance and this assistance is not otherwise funded. Are we in a position to call for someone to move in that direction? Moved by Amy McDonald. Do we have a seconder? Jack Craw. Thank you, Jack. All those in favour, please give an indication.
Aye.
Any objections? There's any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. And any further discussions on the Poutataki report? Do you have sufficient horsepower to continue, Justine?
Thank you very much, everyone. That makes a difference. We'll get on, and in line with, I think, Jack's comments there about, not oversweating that, we will make sure that we are working in that space. Thank you very much for your support.
Okay, tēnā koe. Okay, moving to page 29, item 6.3, the draft KMR 6-month report. And with this, we have Stephanie Versteeg to report on. First off, we want to receive the report, the draft KMR 6-month report. And I'll hand it over to Steph to take us through this.
Kia ora anō. This draft 6-month report is required under our deed of funding with the Ministry for the Environment. So it is a report to the end of December last year, first 6 months of this financial year. It is it's not a report along the same lines as our annual report. It's more of an update on progress, primarily for the ministry. So it's not published on our website or designed in the same way that the annual report is. It provides an overview of expense in the first 6 months of the year and where we're at with our key performance indicators. So we're asking that you approve this in principle and that the chair and deputy chair are delegated the power to approve a final draft of the report for provision to MFE, with the Poutataki also being delegated to make minor editorial changes prior to submission if needed. It's meant to be with MFE tomorrow, so we would expect only very minor tweaks between now and then. Are there any queries about the content of what has been prepared, or any thoughts on that?
No.
Sorry, Virginia.
Oh, no, just saying all good.
Okay.
Amy put her hand up, she approved it and I seconded it, so.
Well, there you go. So just to formalise that, Steve, can I go back and just check that we that the report, Kaipara Moana Remediation Program Draft 6-month report by Stephanie Versteeg, Amo Rautaki Pākihi, dated 10th of February, be received. That's moved by Amy McDonald and seconded by Virginia Warriner.
Right.
All those in favour, please indicate.
Aye.
Aye.
Kia ora.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Kia ora tātou. And moving to the second part. was to approve the draft KMR 6-month report document, Appendix 1, in principle. The second one, the second part of that motion is to delegate to the chair and deputy chair to approve a final draft of the 6-month report for provision to the Ministry for the Environment, with the Poutātaki also delegated to make minor editorial changes prior to submission if required. Have a mover for that motion, please. Georgina Connolly, yeah, the seconder.
Aye.
Okay, kia ora. All those in favour, please indicate aye. Kia ora. All those, any objections? Any abstentions? I just checked the chat while we're going through all of this. Policy changes of effects on projects and landowners. Yeah, that's good. Good point. Maybe underline that. Highlight something, Ilka. Sorry, I meant to say Justine, Ilka. Okay. All those in, yeah, we've done that bit. Now moving to, if there are no further discussions on that agenda item, on the 6-month report, we'll move on down the agenda to page 47, and it's the item 6.4. We've tagged this KMR interests management, shifting the word conflict away to some other space, and it's the response from the Office of the Auditor General. So we'll the purpose of this is to update the Joint Committee on that response and now request for exemptions under the local government legislation in respect of grant funding for Joint Committee members. And I guess I'll hand this over to Ben to give us that update. Kia ora, Ben.
Kia ora, Tammy. Thank you very much. I'll take the report as read because I'm sure it was everyone's highlight reading an OAG decision. There's been some back and forth, but basically the highlights are that JC members are able to stay at the table. So there's a waiver for that when discussing future policy changes, rather than sort of everyone being conflicted out by either land ownership or having an investment. So that's waived when it comes to setting direction on those discussions that Justine mentioned before as we go throughout the year. We'll continue to manage the application conflicts on a basically case-by-case basis from our end operationally, utilising the declarations you've already made and the roster of interests, but should anything change, we just need to know. There are some potential areas in the Navigator projects that we're aware of that we'll need to work through, and we'll do that one-on-one once we start progressing those and figuring out what those project plans are. And for the elected members of other respective councils, you'll be made aware of your own requirements around interest management for either Auckland Council or Northern Regional Council. So this doesn't supersede those decisions. So it's sort of a framework of your home council and then this JC one. And the final point, I guess, is that the current setup exists only under the current MOU arrangement. So any changes to KMR governance, Crown relationships, etc., that would result in a new framework, and that would be managed at the time of the change. But basically, it's a pretty good result to say that, yes, we can manage applications and they're open to receiving them so that no one sort of breaches the Lamia Act, and that you can stay around the table to make those decisions and not have to step down because you have an interest, whether it be 1/100th or 1/500th of an ownership share. So it's a pretty good result, I think, from the OAG, and it allows us to kind of keep those interests aware and at the front of mind when making decisions for future work. Any questions?
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you, Ben.
Back to you, Tame.
No, that's very clear. And for the record, we have prepared some motions. This, as Ben has outlined, that the recommendations is to receive the report on KMR interest management, the Office of the Auditor General's response from Ben Hope, dated 27th of February 2023. Do we have a mover for that, please?
Kia ora through the chair. I'm
Yeah.
happy
Kia
to
ora,
move.
Dave.
Excellent
Happy.
report.
Very good. And seconder,
Happy to second it.
John Blackwell. Thank you, John. All those in favour, please say or indicate. Kia ora.
Oh,
Thank you.
aye. Aye.
Very well done, Ben. And any abstentions? Okay, that part's carried, and moving to noting the response from the Office of Auditor General acknowledges the unique role of the Kaipara Moana Remediation Joint Committee and provides a framework for managing interest with Joint Committee members in the near term. The second part of that is to note the reminder for all Joint Committee members to advise any new or changing interests as early as possible to ensure Kaipara Māori Kura staff can effectively manage these in day-to-day operations. Ben has covered that in his presentation, so we have a mover for that motion. Take it from Virginia. And we have a seconder. Georgina. All those in favour, please indicate.
Aye.
Well done. Aye.
Those against? Any objections? That's deemed to be carried. Thank you again, Ben. Moving to agenda item page 59, as we are 25 minutes ahead of time. Receipt of correspondence at item number 6.5. We have Sophie Bone here to receive the correspondence from Malcolm Welsh, dated 23rd of January 2023. People aware of that in your agenda packs and information? No questions, no discussion? Okay, so can I have someone move that we accept the incoming correspondence from Malcolm? Amy McDonald moved. Do we have a seconder? Greg says. Okay, thank you. All those in favour, please indicate. Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? That's carried. Moving to any other business?
Just testing video. Oh, goodness me.
Kia ora, Jack.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Didn't last long.
Yeah. Did you have something you wanted to add?
No. Cut the point.
Okay.
Just the video.
All right. Perhaps, Justine, if we can provide a bit of an outline of what our anticipated moves are in terms of accommodating the next workshop, and then a reversion back to our schedule of holding face-to-face meetings on marae in particular. We could just cover off, for the information of the joint committee of where we're at with that. Kia ora.
Kia ora, certainly, no problems. So as discussed and agreed at the end of last year, for those present, we are doing hui in person on marae on a rotational basis, and the workshops are online, digital. So we will transition from, we were in person today, of course, apart from road closures. We will reschedule, we've already been in touch with the marae hosts, and 1 May is booked in for that marae te arahapa marae Nara Pereira, as discussed, as was intended for this morning. They've just rescheduled us for that date. There is a whole kāinga session as planned, and we have rescheduled that. It will be a good chance to hear from people in the local area. And I think that those will be important aspects to our discussions. for our workshop next time. It's the soil conservation settings where the work has got to on that. It's discussed a really important session. If there is a preference to meet in person rather than online, I'm happy to accommodate that. But just given the diverse locations geographically of our governors, for now it's online, and we will make that available for people in the usual way. Tammy, is it what you were needing here?
Any questions from any of the members or any points on the arrangements for the immediate short-term meeting venues? I think something that's come to my mind as we were sort of juggling a few balls leading up to today, I think we have to be guided by access to and from these venues. I mean, we have at the moment Waikato. If they were scheduled to host a meeting down there on the Poto Peninsula, we need some kind of guidance that says it must be governed by access to, safe access, safe passage, or public access to and from these localities. Otherwise, it'll be a bit of a challenge. But sorry about that. I was just wanting to add, coming up with a perhaps an arrangement that gives the call to Poutataki chair and deputy chair about how the format that our meetings must take place as it is now. We do trip up if we are going to rely on Waka Kotahi and their website. I know I travelled back from Auckland Saturday evening. The notification about the eastern route north of Kaiwaka wasn't that clear. It talked about a Kaiwaka Mangawhai link. It didn't talk about a Auckland Mangawhai Whangarei link. It highlighted the Brendurin, and then sometimes, that kind of information gets a little bit constipated as well. I guess with Mangamuka and Brendurin clogging up the system, some of the secondary routes are a little bit left high and dry. So what I'm trying to build up to here is that, we can perhaps rely upon the Poutataki, the chair, deputy chair, making a call on whether we follow the format that we've run today. And I guess for postponement or alternative arrangements. I don't think it's so much about the venue as such as keeping an alignment in the contact with local landowners. That's the part that, that's the value of taking it out to these outposts, was to maintain that link. I also wondered, Justine, you mentioned that there was a reference group that had been set up looking at
soil conservation.
Oh, was it the soil conservation reference group? Okay.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Just to highlight that we were getting lots of advice from lots of quarters. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I thought it was another reference group.
We have a Kororo Tuku Iho Mate on the Māori Strategy Reference Group as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought there was a third. Well, I mean, yet another reference group that had been established beyond those that we've become familiar with. But kia ora, Amy, did you have something you wanted to raise?
Kia ora, Tama. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, I guess, give my support to yourself and Justine as we look forward to the next workshop. If Justine, as that workshop agenda evolves, you can see that it's really complex, the conversations that we need to have. Just thinking back to your report and that concept that these are some of the biggest decisions we'll be making over the next short while regarding how we grow our toolbox. I just want to say that I'm supportive of, if we need to, coming together for a face-to-face workshop, if that's going to get us the shared understanding and that underlying, I guess, relationship to then move forward together with our decision. Just knowing that we're quite a new committee still. Some of us still haven't met face-to-face, and yeah, with big decisions in the wings, sometimes a bit of time together can be really valuable. But also know that that takes extra time and effort. Underlying relationship it out there as an option together with our decision. Just knowing that we're quite a new committee still. Some of us still haven't met face-to-face.
Sophie, can you please mute?
Yeah, with big decisions in the wings, sometimes.
Sorry about that, everyone.
Amy, you didn't tell us you were part of a symphony. Okay.
Thank you for that. We will, Chair, yourself and myself will have a think about that. Yeah.
All right, Amy, was that okay? Very good. John, tēnā koe.
Yeah, Tammy, going on from your comment about reaching out to farmers, do you have a presence in the Northern Field Days, as it's the biggest outdoor event north of Auckland? I know Northern Regional Council's there, I presume there'd be a piece in there. Is that Justin, is that right?
I was just about to raise my hand to say that I would hope, barring any events, we'll see you at the KMR stand this weekend at Field Days. We're on Agriline Way, which is when you head in the gate up to the left in the rural pavilion, just next to the food court. So you can grab something to eat and then come and meet some of the KMR ops team who'll be there across the 3 days. It'll be staff and then some of our local field advisors as well. We'll have gear and posters and flags, and you'll be hard to miss us. We've been to the Arapahui show. We're booked in for the Warkworth show. We were going to Helensville, but they had to cancel due to weather. And we're hoping to be at the QMU show in March as well. So we're making our way through, which will be fantastic. Yeah, Warkworth and QMU are both in March, and they're kind of holding on that maybe some weather tightens up by then. But yeah, we'll be at the Field Days, Northern Field Days at Awakena Point Road here from Thursday morning. So it'll be good to see you.
Yes, and we were also at the National Field Days. Alderson, our Auckland Council secondee, took us into that as well, just in case we were scooping up any catchment people who'd gone south.
Order.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm not sure about the symphony input, but I was just going to say, great to hear that the agricultural, pastoral type shows are being sort of seconded and included in the priorities to engage with landowners and people who would frequent places like that. Yeah, I think that's to be supported and applauded. Most certainly the right opportunity, I think, to engage with landowners at those levels. Are there any further comments or matters that people want to raise? If not, I hope that has been encouraging Taiapio and Kieran or Kieran, as your, I hope it hasn't sort of persuaded you otherwise around where this is all heading and what we're encountering, but it is important to have, you know, the likes of people like yourselves engaged, and we try to run an open, connected sort of committee. We're heavily reliant upon our operational staff, and of course having Ilka Pelsa here as a Ministry for the Environment Observer is a practice that we've adopted from day one. We are not in competition with anyone. We are certainly promoting the idea that this model hopefully promotes top down and bottom up. So that's my comment about being surprised when we were told that landowners don't figure in some of the conversations we've been having with some of the branches of the Crown or branches of that national Crown. But I'm glad both Virginia and Georgina were there to witness that reaction.
I was there.
Yeah, so we definitely have that matter covered off, Ilka, and you know, we look forward to some of these discussions, even to the point of what Amy McDonald had raised, and in an opportunity or an option, Justine, that no doubt you could follow that up with within that workforce development framework of secondment or arrangement, put it that way. I do know of a secondment that lasted for 10 years, slightly north of Mangakahia here, located in the mid-north. But yeah, so I'm confident that with what we have planned, I'm sure we can find a solid resolution to that. Want to thank you one and all, look, and encourage people in you know, the journeys that lay ahead, particularly those elected members who have a huge responsibility in the considerations in this immediate short while we're all facing recovery and, of course, maybe resetting the dial. So, Justine, to you and the Kaipara Māori Kura team, a very big thank you, one and all. And, of course, to our joint committee members that are here and any of the public that are still managing to hang in there and listen, observe. I think that there are any sort of communication issues that come through, Justine, and maybe a good option to have that sort of included as you know, good, the bad, and the ugly. We sort of, some of us are show more scars than compliments. We may not show the compliments on our faces, but we can show you the sort of footprints of where people have been all over our backs. We could leave it at that for the moment, and take care, everybody. Stay safe. Be kind to one another. Look out for one another, and like to sort of dedicate a benediction for our week today. Kia tauano kia tātou katoa, te ata whai o tō tātou ariki a Ukraine. E te pipi ngā tahi ki te wairua tapu, o ake, amine. Kia ora tātou.
Good, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Look forward to meeting you all soon at some stage.
Absolutely.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Yes. It would be good to have a good catch up.
Very much.
Lovely. Thank you. Bye.
I'll give you a call, Michelle. There we are. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Good.